Okay, I'm gonna allow people to get into the room. I'm actually I'm on time, so not going to rush, but I'm not going to make it that long. This is history and politics, and obviously I'm Dr. Darnell Bolton, and I don't have any other scholars on with me today. Particularly, we are focused on this plan or interest that our current president, Donald Trump, has of shipping prisoners to El Salvador. Now, I've had some people come on the live and say he didn't say that. Yeah, you must have got it off MSNBC, you must have got it off CNN. What I will start doing is I'm going to exclusively post off of Fox for our Republican people, because I don't want no smoke. I really want people to be aware, because the stuff that I'm talking about is not political. This is historical and economic. And every time we have had an issue of prisoners in this country, it is about labor. Now, there are three modes of production: land, labor, capital. Okay? The United States was started as income property for Great Britain. It grew into states, a country, a continental country. But it was always a money-making venture. That is what the United States is. That's what it was as colonies. That's what it is as a country. So let's not get that twisted. Slavery was not personal. Slavery was around labor, land, labor, capital. Okay? That is a business model. Okay? That's what we're talking about. When we had slavery, that was labor. When slavery transferred in 1865 to penal slavery and allegedly chattel slavery was abolished, guess what? We had convict leasing, where they arrested people and leased them out as labor, which is what Donald Trump is talking about doing now with El Salvador. People ask the question, why would a country want prisoners? Why did we want prisoners in the 1980s and 90s? They were working in our prisons, building our economy, and trillions of dollars were made. Why else would El Salvador want them? So again, we're talking about the movement of labor. So one, we had slavery as the control of labor. Then after chattel slavery in 1865, we had convict leasing, again, control of labor. And then in 1980, the war on drugs and mass incarceration. That was when they brought all of those people into the industrial prison complex. The industrial prison complex boomed. And Boeing and Walmart and Idaho Potatoes and all of these different companies started using prison labor. And they began arresting nonviolent people, keeping them in there mandatory. And remember the 1994 crime bill. Everything I'm telling you, look it up. Don't debate if I'm politically whatever. Look up the information I'm telling you. In the 1990s, they started extending the prisoners' time in prison so they could work for these companies longer to make money. So we have to be aware when we hear in modern day, because that was almost 50 years ago, 1980. So I guess that would be, it's almost 50 years ago. 45. Now they're really thinking, people forgot about it. We can remix this again. Or at least since we're not doing it in the United States, they're not going to notice that we're doing it in another country. And it's being sold as outsourcing prisoners. But what are those prisoners for? And on the last video, we pointed out that violates 5 different amendments of the United States Constitution. You cannot just take American people and send them out of their country, away from their family, to a country they may not speak the language, to a place that we don't know what type of prison care or safety they're going to be in, because we have a right to be protected against cruel and unusual punishment. I believe that is the 8th Amendment. What Donald Trump is talking about right now is convict leasing. Because if you're not taking these people's, if we're not taking their citizenship, that means they have to come back. So if I get a car, drive it for a while, and then send it back, I leased it. But let's focus on what convict leasing was. After slavery ended, allegedly, we know it was transferred because the 13th Amendment reads that you can have slavery if it's punishable by a crime. Now, again, crime, slavery. Do you see the connection between, we're talking about crime, criminals. It's written in the 13th Amendment. We can discriminate against these people if they're criminals. Now, understand, Frederick Douglass was considered a criminal because he escaped slavery. Susan B. Anthony, a white woman, was considered a criminal because she was fighting against the laws as they stood. The people who sat in during the civil rights movements were considered criminals because they were breaking the law. Every time, in United States history, every time the United States wants to do something that is going to affect the economy, they put a name on the group of people to dehumanize them. What did Donald Trump call the prisoners? He called them animals. What did they call the slaves? Subhuman. What did they call the Native Americans? Savages. What did they call women? Quasi-citizens or second-class citizens. Every time. What did they call the young black people? Hillary Clinton in particular. Super predators. So this is nothing new that you're seeing that's coming from Donald Trump. These names are created to dehumanize these people. All of us have someone close to us that is either in prison or has been in prison. The United States has the largest incarceration rate of any civilized, quote unquote, civilized nation. So, is your loved one an animal? Are you an animal? You could have been incarcerated at a time. You may be incarcerated tomorrow, because think about it. How I police areas determine who's the criminals. If I arrest people in the Latino area and don't arrest people in the black area, it's going to appear that there's more criminals that are of Latin descent. If I talk to the black folks and say, hey, y'all, don't do that, focus, go to school, I'm gonna let you go. But when I go to the white area, I'm rounding everybody up and arresting everybody I can. It's going to appear that white people are more criminal because I control who is arrested and who enters the criminal system. If I'm making the laws, slavery was legal. Segregation was legal. At one time, alcohol was illegal. Now everybody drinking. So if I control the laws and I control the policing and where policing happens and how policing happens where it is, I control who is deemed a criminal and who's not, regardless of who is doing the activity. So don't watch this develop, because this is how the war on drugs started. And it ended up decimating the black community because either slavery, convict leasing, war on drugs, mass incarceration. Who was the group that was always disproportionately affected? Black people. Get mad. Check it. Just check it. In 1865, of the people who were arrested in the convict leasing system, 90% of the black people were sent. They made up 90% of the people who were outsourced as labor, not the white people. Now, there's always been more white people in the country than there has been black people. So there are always going to be more white people in prisons. But the abuses and the disproportionality of population is going to be focused on, has been on black people. Our areas are policed differently, hence George Floyd, Philando Castile, and all the many rest. So this is not something that we can let go by easily. Convict leasing is something that is over 100 years old. That is what Donald Trump is talking about. Leasing convicts. Why do we want to send these people out? Why are they suddenly animals? Why are they animals? And look up the Willie Horton campaign. That was when, in a presidential election, I believe it was George Bush, where they found this black man that had done a heinous crime. And they just painted this picture. Bush is losing against Michael Dukakis. And they just put this black man's picture up here. Oh, he got out of jail and killed a white woman. And they used this worst case scenario to make Michael Dukakis look like he was soft on crime. Ronald Reagan did it with the welfare queen. Look it up. They found a black woman, pasted her face all over the place. Oh, this lady abused the welfare system. And that's what Donald Trump is doing now. He's talking about this guy who pushed somebody in front of a train. That's what all of our criminals are. Most of the people that's in our prisons are from the 1990s that are non-violent drug offenders. All of this has been apologized for by Biden, by Obama, by George Bush, and a bunch of senators and Congress people, of how it disproportionately affected the black community and how these people should not have been locked up for being violent. And how do you determine who's a violent criminal? Because if we are supposed to be helping these people become assets to society when they're in prison, why are they not being rehabilitated? And are we saying that we don't have the ability to? What is the measurement tool and who's watching this measurement tool, that it's only the people who have shown that they cannot be rehabilitated will be the ones that are being sent out of the country. And no matter if they can't be rehabilitated, why do they lose their civil rights? Why does the Constitution change? Because I'm violent. Okay, fine. The rule is I'm incarcerated. Now, also, don't forget the Eighth Amendment, double jeopardy. I've already been adjudicated. How can you then, on top of my adjudication, punish me by sending me to another country? I haven't done a second crime. You said, this is what you did. This is where you got to go for this long. And then suddenly, oh yeah, now what we're going to do is we're going to send you to this country. Think about it. Why would this get outside of the White House if they're just kicking it around? This is being tested for a response from the American people. I will bet you dollars to donuts. Some people in America have invested in El Salvadorian prison systems. We don't build up other countries for a particular reason. And why would we send American citizens to another country? And this is not the first time that's happened. In 1862, Haiti had published in more than one newspaper as being a site to send American black people after the Haitian Revolution. So they were trying to use that as colonization. Colonization was what they were calling shipping black people out of the country so they could have a white America. That began it began shortly after the formation of the country, but formally in 1816 with the American Colonization Society. And the American Colonization Society was a group of white men that had decided that they would ship black people out of the country only if they wanted to go. So you had to agree to going. It wasn't a forced migration like the Atlantic slave trade. Well, see, here's the problem. They would tell them, we will release you from slavery, but you got to leave the country. We're going to leave you. We're not going to protect you against the KKK and racism and the black codes and Supreme Court rulings that marginalize black people. We're not going to protect you from that. But if you leave, you won't have to deal with it. So it was a forced suggestion. So this is not the first time that this happened. Liberia was built for a place to ship black people, the people that they didn't want here. And Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of State did not want them shipping black people out of the country because he said, we need our labor here. We got people dying in the United States in the Civil War. We shouldn't be sending people out. So when you're hearing this, look it up. Look for Donald Trump. Look, and again, I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for anybody. I will never vote for anybody. I have never voted for anybody. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not an independent. I am an independent thinker. I don't vote. Black people have never gotten anything from voting. Black people have only gotten things in this country 3 ways: education, economic segregation, and protest. That's the only way black folks have gotten things. Democracy is set up for majority rules. We're 12% of the population. 12% never gets what they want in a majority rule scenario. It's not set up that way. So our inability to participate made us desire that vote, and we put a strength in voting that has never benefited us. We've been able to participate in voting for about 150 years, if we count from the 15th Amendment, and about 80 years if we count from 1965. And economic segregation is what has gotten us things, gotten laws changed. Education has gotten us economically viable where we can protect ourselves. And protest. So, convict leasing, look it up. There's nothing new that these politicians can do. This is not new. Convict leasing. Last live we did the Constitution. This is about convict leasing. This is something that happened immediately after they stopped slavery. Become aware of what happened and how did convict leasing play out? What was the point of convict leasing? It was about controlling labor. And there is a labor shortage in El Salvador, I bet you money. Why else would you need prisoners? Why else? So, please subscribe to the channel and also comment. Look up this information that I'm telling you. Don't just take it, because I said it. Look it up. See if it makes sense. And then Google the videos, Trump in El Salvador prisons, and listen to it. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what race you are. Most of these wars are wars against poor people. Our labor system has always been poor people. So if you fall in that demographic, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you're in the Green Party, if you're a woman, if you're a man, if you're black, if you're white, if you're Latina, if you're Asian, if you're poor in this country, and they're talking about prisoners being used, it's 9 times out of 10 labor. And when we run short on prisoners, what do we do then? We begin to police harder to create more criminals to fill the economic need. Because if El Salvador gets enough criminals from the United States to build their economy on, they're going to need to keep that number of people coming. Or if the economy grows, they're going to need more people. Do we want to be a farm of prisoners? Because for them to satisfy that, they're going to have to make more prisoners. And they don't come after the people with money. They come after the poor people. And some of us who have gotten in our later life where we can spell able, no, they're not going to come after the college professors. But they may come after my son. They may come after my nephews. They come after my friends' kids, my cousins' kids. So everything on TV is not that far away. But this is not, hey, let's talk about who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. If it's something that you are going to get up and get active about, this better be it. Especially if you don't have any money. I have seen this before in my lifetime. This is how the war on drugs started. So, like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, give me your comments. Now, I have to make this statement, and it's sad that I do. We can disagree without being disagreeable. I'm not going to get into a nasty exchange with anybody. That's not why I opened an academic channel. If you disagree, fine. Tell me why you disagree. I might learn something. But at no point am I going to call you out of your name. At no point am I going to expect that you should be calling me out of my name. I'm not going to ask you for your credentials. If you want to know my credentials, you can Google me. But this is a conversation. Just because we have opposing views, that doesn't mean we're arguing. So, that being said, make sure that you make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I will be in Indiana tomorrow, so I don't think that we're going to go live. I think we're just going to go Monday through Wednesday every week. So I will see everybody Monday, 9 p.m.